الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
So today inshallah we'll continue with lecture 9, and I hope that you are all started to get ready to Ramadan. It's not much left, and inshallah we are starting soon in 4 to 5 days time, and all of us ready inshallah. As you know, after this we have another 2 lectures, and inshallah we will be ready for the final check, and I'm sure you are by now ready for the final check in the hereafter inshallah. We are still in our move, trying to know our Lord, and inshallah we start to open up some doors. I need to highlight one thing, is when we talk about knowing, we are dislodging ourselves or disengaging ourselves from this material world. And as Imam Ali alayhi salam told us that when they asked him, have you seen your Lord? He said, how can I worship somebody who I don't see? If I don't see him with my eyes, I see him with my insight. That's where we want to go, and inshallah we can reach. And although you may find it difficult sometimes to in our comprehension to get it, but inshallah through this you will find out that one of the major aspects of understanding how to reach to God is to understand that we are not going to reach by our work. All what we do is trying to open up the doors so we can perceive what He sent us to raise us up towards Him. I hope that I've said this right. But right, so remember we have to keep on removing the heavy weight so we can ascend. He is continuously sending us these glimpses, so we have to keep on trying to find them. And by this we know that we have no time. So once we reach there, we know that we are living in the present, and once we are living in the present, we are not so much thinking in the future which hasn't happened. We are not so much thinking about the past which already gone. We are thinking at present, and in the present who else but Him around us. With the pondering, we pondered around, inshallah most of you has done at least some pondering. We pondered around the delicacy of creation. So from this we keep on learning lessons. These are the hints. And then we progress to pondering around our action. So each thing we do, we need to think and remember. Well, not remember, think to start with. Think that it's Him who did it. It's not us. We are just a wasila, a vehicle. And by this we know that and understand what's Tawheed. With that we progress, and we kept progressing now to, after thinking and pondering, we reach to remembrance. With the remembrance, we discussed the benefit, and the most important benefit is it's a defending armor. This is a beautiful ayah I want to repeat with you. Allah told us, and those who are aware of Allah's presence, when an evil group of shaitan assault them, they remember Allah, and this is the armor. And when they remember, they see the truth. And that's the beauty of remembrance. Remembrance usually starts first with pondering, and now we want to remember what we pondered about, the beauty of what we pondered about. The remembrance are types. The verbal type, which, as you remember, it's what we do over dhikr, like subhanallah, alhamdulillah, and this is beautiful by itself and it's good to do, but it's just the first step. The concealed by heart is the one we do the thing that we need to practice is to get our heart used to it. So it comes without us asking our heart to say it. So if we keep on practicing to say something about Allah when things happen, so it comes directly. For example, we keep on remembering to recite Ayatul Kursi before going to sleep, and then it will be done automatically, and it's beauty because it brings this remembrance and bring this protection. Because most of us have this. When you sleep, the shaitan do attack before you sleep. It brings you all these memories, and the best protection is Ayatul Kursi. Now, he always tries to make you forget saying it, but if your heart switched on, and that's through practicing, it will come without you thinking about it, and that's the beauty of it. And then we go to the practical remembrance. That's in each step you do. You remember, is what I'm doing acceptable or not acceptable to Allah? And this is the dhikr kathir. This is the real remembrance. Now the question comes as, why are we then away from remembrance? Why don't we remember? The problem is we understand it from the hadith of Prophet ﷺ that Allah created angels and put in them mind, and animals and put in them desires, and son of Adam has them both. Those who made the mind control the desire, they are better than angels, and inshallah we are heading that way, and Ramadan come, and inshallah we practice to be like that. Otherwise, if we by choice decided to be animal, we are worse than animal, because believe me, if they have the choice, they wouldn't do it. So that's the conflict of interest. Usually we have these two interests in ourselves. Something that we were born with, it's in our nature, and remember, not all natural is right. Okay, so the natural desire is there to help us to survive, not to have leisure. That's quite different perspective. While our spiritual need is what bring us up, and the heart keep on wandering between these, and that's why the heart called qalb, because qalb means it keep on shifting and changing from here to there. So understanding this will make us realize, how can we then stay in? And that's the subject for today. How can we stay in? Now, the first thing to stay in is to accept the advice. And you may say, well, yeah, fair enough. But is it easy? To accept advice and to get the benefit of advice, the first thing we have to reach is to feel that we have serious need for this advice. If we don't have the serious need for these advices, we don't go for it, isn't it? That's the problem. So, if you are in a place where there is no one to give you the advice, what would you do? Let's say you have a disease and you are in a place there's no doctors. Do you stay in that, or you're really sick? Mm-hmm. Do you go somewhere? Mm-hmm. You do, right? So you feel the serious need for it. Mm-hmm. Now the question is, do we have this serious need? Now, how to reach there? How to reach to the stage that we feel that we have a serious need, to the level that we travel, we leave our place and go to it for advice. I'm not sure some of you are doing this, but really we all need to keep on feeling this serious need for it. What prevents us from doing it is this: I am good. Once I feel I'm okay, I can go to the internet and listen to the lecture. That's good enough. No, it's not good enough. It's good, not enough. Because you will, and we will come to it, there is an important thing that you are losing. Our religion is not a religion of one. It's a religion of community. And without this experience you want. And once you feel that you are good enough to do it, we are falling in this trap, because we don't feel the serious need. So, with the serious needs, when do we start to feel this need? when we know that we are not returning to God, when we know that pondering is not something that we can do always and master, we actually scarcely do it. We hardly do it. And inshallah we will do it more and more. But when we are lacking these two things, I think it's better to listen, isn't it? It's better to ask some expert to give it to us. One of the problems is age arrogance. As we grow older, we think that we are good. And you hear this from older people. When you talk about arranging something, they say, oh, we are good. I think we know everything. I think we have to concentrate on doing this to our children. And this is by itself is a big mistake. Yes, it's good that we want to give something to our children. To start with, we have to get our children to accept that they need something to get. Anyway. And second is, there's nobody reached a stage that they don't need more. Sheikh Muhammad Tusi, up to his and he is, he's really high scholar, and at the age of 55 he goes to a person in his 20s to be taught, and they said, why? Because he said, I think I need the knowledge you have, and that knowledge was ethics and manner. So that young gentleman was teaching this, and Muhammad Tusi went there at 55. So really there is no age and no stage that we can reach without needing this advice. And what more than Imam Ali alayhi salam? Imam Ali alayhi salam, when talking about the benefit of listening to an advice, he asked his friend to give him a lecture. He said, oh Mawlai, can I give a lecture in front of you? What? He said, please do. I want you to do, because you don't know how much is there in listening. And listening to other perspective. We know that Imam is Ma'soom, but listening to other perspective is very important, because even if you are not learning a new knowledge, you are learning how the others think. And this is by itself is important, because that would open a new perspective for you. So listening is always very important. So that's the first thing, feeling the serious need for it. Then what does it help with? It does help to reach the reality of our action. We have two things. Now, for example, in fiqh, there is something called tasawwur, which is imagining. So when I tell you that if you don't do salat or you don't do siyam, you'll go to fire, you will accept that, inshallah, all of you accept. That's why you're listening probably. But what you have in your mind is imagining. Have you reached the level of tasdeeq, believing? Don't know, each one is different. But the level of tasdeeq is the level where we know it's happening. It's like, again, the very common example. If I asked you to put your hand in the fire, you won't. Because you have a tasdeeq, a belief that it will burn you. It's not imagining. And that's where we need to reach. And really accepting the advice will get us into that. The most important thing in the advice is to ignore the speaker's defect. Like, poor guy, poor you have to cope with me not talking in a good way. But what this advice is telling us is, go after what you are doing it for. The problem with the speaker defect, we have to think, everything, if we start to believe from pondering that everything is coming from Allah, so even listening through that creature of Allah called the speaker, it's not haphazard. It came from Him Almighty. And because of that, just imagine Him as a vehicle of this advice. Now each vehicle has its limitation. And one of the limitation is the way they talk. There are two perspectives in looking at that. The first one, Imam alayhi salam says, look at what is said and don't look at who said it. Now this is important. from two aspects. From historical aspect, like sometimes you have people who are very famous and well known, and whatever they said, they say, oh yeah, it's good, and you like it. It's not enough. But at the same time, you may have people who are unknown, and they said a beautiful thing, and you have to get it. That's the glimpse of it. That's the glimpse that Allah Almighty sent to us through Him. So it's beautiful. So this from one aspect. From the other aspect, one of our scholars gave this poem. He said, listen to what I say and then look at what I do. You benefit from my knowledge and you won't be harmed by my shortcoming. So from one aspect, don't be fooled by the speaker, whether good or bad, but look at what they said. From the other aspect, when you have a bad speaker, don't concentrate on their badness. So it happened everywhere, isn't it? You go to a speaker and those guys, they talk in the old way and it's so boring, and you get nothing and you just want to leave. Try to get the glimpse, well, if there is any. But if you think that there is nothing that's different. So not everybody has this ability. Imam Ali alayhi salam, when you read his khutbah, it doesn't take long, but it touches you from every aspect, isn't it? This is from the heart to the heart. So when the talk is real, it reaches. We know that Imam Khomeini is like that. Imam Khomeini used to talk to the whole nation for 10 minutes, and he changed the whole nation, make them move. Some people, they have this ability, not everybody has. And will we be blessed if we have such a person. But also, it takes long time to have genuinity in the speaker. And this this is a big word, genuinity. It takes long time to reach there, and once we reach it, the words will just touch the heart. So, this is the first thing, accepting advice. The second, how can we reach there, is to keep on trying to gain the insight from previous experience. So when you hear a previous experience, when you hear for example, when we talked about Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he saw the horse racing, and his horse racing, and he was so much astonished with how beautiful the creature of God. So he prostrate. So that's what we want to learn from this experience, that we want to see this beauty and prostrate everywhere. But to do that, we need to keep our mind activated so we can get these glimpses from everywhere. And how to get the mind activated? How to get this alertness in our mind? You remember, we want to make what we pondered about part of us. So I pondered about my action, and I kept on thinking, this action is not me, it's Allah doing it. It's through His power and permission. I want to make this part of me. So each time this action comes, I remember that, oh yes, He did it. And this is by practice. I need to keep on practicing. And when I continue on practicing this, I'll reach to activating the it's not RIS, RSR. What's the R? What's the RSR? I'm actually, it is RIS. I'm mixing RSR. It's RIS. What's RIS? Let's explain this. How any action starts. Usually when we want to do anything, we first imagine, right? Imagine something I want, and usually we imagine something pleasant, right? Mm-hmm. And then our brain will ask our body to move to it. Now, how do we know it's pleasant? Because our eye and our ears has heard it, has seen it, has tasted, for example, and all this. Yeah. So once we do it and we feel more pleasure, the senses will give more stimulus to this part of our brain, which is called the RSR, reticular activating system. This reticular activating system is so powerful system. What do you think? How much we see around us? We see lots, right? We see things that we like. We see cars. We think about our ulama. We see people. We see things that we like. We see things we like to play. We think things like we like to eat. Now, how our brain manage with that much of information, not overloaded? You know what? Our brain get 2 million bits a second. There is no computer can cope with that at this stage. But this RAS filters only 134 per second goes in. How does it filter it? It's filtered by choice. Not by choice at that stage, but by choice before. Has it ever happened to you, like you drive a car and you see many cars around you, you won't you won't pick that particular car. Now you bought this new car, whatever it is, and now you start seeing it running in the street wherever you go. And say, oh, I thought I bought a sort of a special car, not many people have it. The reality is your RAS used to filter it. You don't need this information. Now you do, because it's part of your brain. So he starts to pick it. That's how we need to train our brain to pick the glimpse of Allah. If we keep on training, this is what we want you to pick. It will be part of it, and start picking it. So whenever I see something, it will remind me of Allah. And I keep on practicing this, it will happen. And you may say, oh, this is not reality. It is reality. How people, thus meditator, for example, how do they walk on the fire? How people jump in an ice water in the northern hemisphere, especially in Russia. They swim in this icy water. How do you think they don't get affected? They actually built in their mind. It's like immunization, but it's idea immunization. And that's what we can do to practice to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So making Allah's glimpse are what we see, and that's what we can do. So what can help with doing this? There are some dua, and now if you want, this is beautiful dua. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum Ya La ilaha illa ant. This is from our scholars. If you practice this, your mind alertness will be maximum. So all living, sustaining, who there is no God but you. Keep on doing this, and inshallah you will be an expert in picking these things. Now, so after we activated the mind, we have to appreciate time, because once we activated the mind, the reality will come true in front of us. There is no time for us. And we keep on mentioning this because we need to remind ourselves, really there is no time. We have to keep on doing it quickly and swiftly, because there is no time. We have to reach there and protect ourselves. And we have to remember a very important thing: clarity of intent. There is difference between whenever you do one of these things, this come to you without you feeling it. It's built in, unfortunately, and we have to remove it. The showing off. So many times when you do something, you say, oh, that was good of me. I was really good. MashaAllah, I did it. I did that. Even when it is inside you without telling it, it has a problem. Because it will blind us. Once we feel good, right from beginning. We will not listen to advice, we will not pick things, and all this will stumble and tremble. So we need to be careful. And then when we do all this, we'll reach to the fruit of pondering. And that's the beauty. So what's the fruit of pondering? You remember, in pondering first, when we pondered about the delicacy of a creation. For example, when we looked at the formation of the embryo, we found that the what do they call it? The guys which come from I should have forgot the name, but the guys which come from the male, so about 1 million of them going to the ova, and these millions of them, they are not competing, they are all trying to get to one goal. And that's what we need to learn. In all of us go to that goal, even if we fall in the between. And that's why we understand the meaning of shahada, of martyrdom, because those martyrs, they understand that they are pushing to the goal. Even if they fall in the way, they know they are part of the building structure, and they are building to it. We need to understand everything around us in that way, and it will inshallah bring us to something, because the whole life will be much more beautiful. So this is pondering out the legacy of a creation. And then when we ponder about the action, we will reach. Now these ponders, we came out with something, with ideas. How long does it stay in? Probably seconds, minutes, a day, probably not longer. We need to keep it, and that's why we need to remember. And we need to learn how to remember, and we need to remember how to apply it, to learn. Once we learn it, this will lead to an exponential increase in knowledge. Just imagine, if you have this pot and straining, how much water you can get? It's just so much, and then after flooding will happen, right? But if you enlarge this pot, there will be no flooding, because and that's really what we want from our Almighty God, to help us to increase our pot. And this increase our pot is, once you have a knowledge, your sharh sadr will increase. This is the enlargement of the pot to have more. And that's what our Prophet, our beloved Prophet ﷺ told us. Man amila bima alim warathahu Allah ilma ma lam ya'lam. Whoever applied what he learned, God will give him a knowledge about what he did not know before. And this is practically acceptable, isn't it? When you learn something, when you read about something, you learned it, right? Now when you go and do it, you will learn heaps a lot. And that's why when they said, when you go, for example, to a mechanic, or for somebody who fixes something in your house, you want to go to the expert. What does expert mean? Somebody who did it a few times, so they are so much knowledgeable practically in it. And that's where we want to reach. And that's the important part of knowing God. We want to know. We are listening to these lectures, and we know that it will take us somewhere. But we have this in our mind. Now, at the end of the day, these are lectures. These are words. And the question comes, and always comes, is that a reality or illusion, what we are going to think about? But I'll just give you, and probably I gave you this story before, when Allama Qadi, his student, came and asked him, "Oh Master, is it real? Is the love of God real? Is that something that achievable?" He said, "Well, have you ever loved a girl?" I said, "Oh Maulana, I don't do these things." I said, No, really, have you ever loved a girl before?" He said, "Maulana, really, I don't." So I told him, "So get lost. You are not going to get the love of Allah." Why is that? Because first, you thought that the love is from you. Any love is from Allah. And that's why Allama Qadi, whenever he sees one of his students who really caring and loving to his family, he loved to go there, because he said, I can see the glimpse of Allah there, because that's the love from Allah that this man or this woman is giving to the family. Now, back to where we are, what we are talking about. If we believe that through this knowledge that we are listening to now and getting, we reach Allah by ourselves, just let's forget about it. We are learning, so hopefully our pot will be larger, so we can understand more, and we can reach to higher stage, so we can see more of Him. And that's the only way to get there. So when we say we are inshallah will see Him, it's not an illusion. It's the way that Imam Ali was saying, I see Him by my insight, and inshallah we'll go there. Anyway, we'll continue. So how can we get these fruits? First, pondering about the meaning of Quran. We keep on repeating this. We need to give this book its right. Try to understand any words. I mean, sometimes you cannot, but once you start to understand it, believe me, one of them will click. And go and search for that particular one. We have lots of tafsir, lots of this is one of the, I don't usually advocate Google, but Google can help with, I mean, not Google in particular. You will ask for Ahlul Bayt tafsir from Google, and it will guide you to there, and you will find the beauty of these words. The second one is avoiding 5 things. Very important. Can be depressing for some and enlightening for others, and it is enlightening, so let's go through it. The first one, I didn't translate that, so this is, sorry, the 5 things. First is over socialization. Now, I don't want you to be a complex people and not talking to others, but really what over socialization will do. The first thing is, who do we socialize with and how? That's the important part. We talked about the circles of remembrance. So try to attend. This is our food. This is our medicine. This is our medication. If the same example, if you are in a place where there is no doctor and you are sick, you will go to it. If you are in a place and there is no such a circle, you have to travel to it. You have to feel the need for it, because that's the only way for us to stay in touch. So the circle of remembrance is the way. Now the question is who? Who is this circle of remembrance? Definitely is, I mean, our problem is we get invited to many parties, we get invited to many what they call it, outings. It's fine, but who am I going to go for these with? Because that's important. And even if they are my relative and they are not talking in the right way, I should not give it that much of time. But if I have to, how? Because sometimes you may ask, if I seclude myself from everybody, how can I preach? Which is a very good question. Fair enough. If you go to this, try your best to find an ethically acceptable way to turn the corner around them. So you can remind them, at least you can be a reminder. And believe me, it will be 2 ways. Either they will start to like you and come with you in this way, or start to hate you and they will not invite you again, which is good in a way. Alright, so this is one aspect. The other thing, this is from hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, go to the greater predominance. Alaykum bis-sawad al-a'zam. We need to try to be in a place where there are some Muslims. I mean, from this hadith, where Muslim is a predominance. But if you don't have this, you need to be in touch. Our religion is the religion of society. It's not of hermit type thing here. So we have to be in touch. And even if that requires traveling, we have to do it. We have to keep on going to these places because we need to be in touch. Otherwise, we will be in touch with something else. And then we have to choose. Who should we walk with? And I mean, we mentioned many examples. If I, for example, go to a trip with a few friends and they brought nothing about Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, what do you think will happen? At the end, you will forget also. But if there is only one person that bring it in, everybody will start bringing it in. And even if you are that person, be it, because it's really important. Now, how should we choose a friend? From our Prophet ﷺ and narrated from our Imam, from both Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, souls are like soldiers in an army squads. Those who get well together, they will have familiarity. And those who don't get well together, they will diverge. The big question is, and comes to my mind, is how do I know myself? So this will bring us to Sinkhiyya Allatul Indimam. Big word in Arabic, but in English probably easier to understand. Communality is the reason for association. You usually associate with those who have some commonality with. And that's the frightening part. So if you find yourself having commonality with not God-loving people, you need to question yourself, because it's a problem. So with whom we sit to bring us close to God, we have to put it in other way. With whom Allah Almighty sent. If I have commonality with those who don't think about Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, do we think that He would love to sit with them? And if He doesn't, where am I putting myself? And with whom I'm having commonality? It's something I need to change in myself. Because Allah said, I'm sitting with who remember me. So if they don't remember Him, He's not sitting with us. And with whom should we sit then? Isa alayhi salam said, who is seeing Him reminds you of God. So this is the criteria to choose. And Subhanahu wa Ta'ala told us in Surah An-Nisa, it has been revealed to you in the book that when you hear God's signs being disbelieved in and mocked, what should you do? Do not sit with them until they engage in some other talk. Now if this doesn't happen, for otherwise you would surely like them. If you sit with them and they are saying that, you are like them. And where are they going? All together into hell. This is frightening. For me it's a frightening ayah, but it's full with meaning, and we need to ponder around it, and really it's quite practical. In Surah Al-An'am, Allah told us, when you see those who engage in vain talk about our signs, turn away from them until they talk on some other topic. Now, sometimes you do forget, because the attack from shaitan coming, and if shaitan should make you forget, do not sit after you remember with the evil doing folk. You need to come out. This happen a lot, isn't it, in our society. We have lots of this. If we see this happening, we try to disengage. We can do this politely, there's no problem, but we have to make sure that we need to do it, because that's how we resist the temptation. The temptation is coming, the shaitan is attacking. Disengage. You have to come out. From Jesus alayhi salam, when his companion asked him, who should we take as a friend? Who's seeing him remind you of God, and who's hearing him increase your knowledge, and seeing his action encourage you to work the hereafter. I think Jesus, in general, he's so strict in his advice. but it's so deep also. He's giving us the criteria that we are looking for from our Prophet ﷺ. He said, be aware and do not sit with the dead people. And his companion frightened, oh Rasulullah, what's the dead people? How can we sit with dead? We are not walking with zombies. He said, no, these are the luxuriant rich person. Now this is quite relevant and also quite relative concept, because you may not see yourself luxuriant, rich, but in comparison with whom? You compare yourself with what you call rich, but somebody came from Africa will see you as rich. So what's the luxuriant? Luxuriant is somebody who's indulged in the richness, and this indulgement is what makes us dead. And when you go to one of these dead person, what they talk about? They talk about their dogs. They talk about how many trips they did and what did they see. And you have to compete. You say, oh, also I went there, and that's what we talk about. Or they talk about their cars, what's the latest car. Or they talk about rugby or footy or whatever, soccer. So all dead talk, and that's why they are dead person. And the other one is an unjust who does not care about his injustice. And this is a big thing. Now, you may think about Saddam and all these tyrant, but it's not that. It's unjust when we do an unjust thing, when we are not just with our family, and we don't care that we are not just, when we are not just with our friend, and we don't care we are not just. And that's total blindness and, I don't know if there's such a word, deadness. Right. You may ask then, if I do all this and I seclude myself, I'll be a caveman. I'll just go up and don't talk to anyone. No, don't do that. It's a very nice story actually about somebody who is a religious young man, and he came to one of the Western countries and he decided to be a hermit. He just left the city and stayed alone. He said, why are you doing that? He said, because your city is so temptive. Everything is temptation. I don't want such a place. This is not good for my Islam. So they sent to his ustad. The friend sent to the ustad. He said, he's doing that. So he sent him a letter. He told him, make sure to take a hot plate and put it on your eyes to blind yourself, and put it inside your ears to be deaf, and also put it on your tongue so you don't taste anything. It's not this. It's not by removing the senses. It's by how to control senses. When you are in a test, it's your challenge to be higher. If you decided to cut all the tools from this test, you won't go anywhere. So not running away, but to challenge. Now, from that, what we are saying here, don't stop meeting people, but don't indulge in it. It's not your goal. And if you meet them, make a plan. What am I meeting them for? And how is that good for them and for me? I think I took enough time with that. 5 things. Now, apart from this, is living in the wishes. And this is a problem of all of us. Okay, fair enough. I'll do this later on. I'll do this before the exam. And I learned lately from the way you've been taught, and it's called scientifically proven, that don't study day by day or don't write notes and write it just before the exam. Fair enough, I'm not challenging that, but what I'm saying is try not to live in the future, because you cannot live in the future. Live in your day, and remember, tomorrow is today, and there was no yesterday, and yesterday is gone anyway. Right? So try to make your plan that you need to do it now. And if I keep on saying I will go to Hajj when I have money, or when my children will get married and then I'll go to Hajj, or I'm too young to go to Hajj now, I mean I need to enjoy my life and then go, no, that doesn't work that way. You don't have the time. Living in the wishes is not good. It's not only not good, it will take us nowhere. The other problem is hoping to get things from other than Allah. We think that we can get happiness by having more money, having more houses, more cars, well, in the old days, more children. Probably nobody believes in this now. But we are trying to achieve or to reach happiness through means not other than Allah, and believe me, that doesn't take us anywhere, because all of them are limited and the pleasure with them is limited, while the pleasure with Allah is eternal and exponential. Overeating definitely is a blindness, and I'll just give you this part of Hadith Inwan al-Basri, the narration of Inwan al-Basri. He's one of the companion of Imam Salih alayhi salam. It's a long hadith. I'll just take this part, which is in the self-discipline, and he says, do not eat what you do not need, as this will cause stupidity. I don't think there is more clear than this. We all do. Do not eat unless you are hungry, and eat halal and saying Bismillah before starting. And remember, the Prophet said, human has not filled a pocket in his body worse than a stomach. It's really big pocket, isn't it? But it is a must to eat. So the criteria is fill 1/3 with food, 1/3 with water, and leave 1/3 for you to breathe. Because when your stomach is over full, even you cannot breathe. You just like you saw those big people, they cannot walk because of their shortness of breath. So definitely that's something to prevent us getting there. And the last thing, oversleeping. Many of our scholars, they don't sleep more than 3 to 4 hours a day. You may think that this is not healthy. No, these studies which say that we have to sleep 6 to 8 hours, done not by religious people. So they are not talking about, yes, the norm for a non-religious people, but like that. But there is something different. If the RAS get trained to do something different, it can do. And oversleeping will make us lose much more time, which we don't have anyway. So these are the 5 things. And the last thing is remembering death. Now I don't want to depress you. Let's take death in a different parameter. It's just a transfer from word to world, from real to real. It's an end of a test and going to the next stage. So if we understand it like this, we will see it as our time limit. And the challenging thing, we don't know. For example, in your usual exam, you have 3 hours. Here you don't. You may have no more than listening to this lecture, or even not finishing this lecture. You just die now. You don't know. Inshallah you won't, but right. So how can we reach the remembrance when we are close to sin? Our Prophet ﷺ said, death is a sufficient advisor. If you remember death at that time, you remember that, oh goodness, if I'm about to die, would I do that? No, I wouldn't. And Imam Ali says, alayhi salam, he says, how heedless you are about what is not heedless of you. You are heedless of death, and death is not heedless of you. He knows exactly when and where. And he said, by Allah, what prevents me from playing is remembrance of death. Now you say, oh come on Imam Ali, you make it difficult for us. But he's talking about, if you know that your exam going to finish after 5 minutes, you will be really stressed. And again, if you don't know whether it will be finished in 1 or 5 minutes, you will be more stressed. Probably that's what he's talking about. But it's not a negative stress. It's in a way of to be prepared. And that's what we need to reach. Right. So, remembrance, because I gave you lots of information just to solidify it. First we talked about the benefit, and the most important benefit is the biggest armor that prevent us. So once we are about to fall, if we remember, we will get up. There are many types of it. The first one is the verbal, which we all inshallah do, especially Ramadan coming. But the most important thing is to get our heart to say it even without thinking, because we can reach inshallah to putting the armor, so our armor will come automatically instead of we think about it. And then if we remember while practicing, we will reach to continuous protection. Why are we not there yet? Because unfortunately we have this in ourselves. We are from desires, from anger, from angelic part in us, and from wisdom. Now I have to say, most of us living in this, most of our life indulge in desire, in anger, in illusion. And why is that? Because we have continuous conflict of interest between our natural need and a spiritual need, and the heart keep on playing in it. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ says the heart is like a feather in a windy desert, and it goes everywhere, and that's why we need to control it. So we need to build up until we reach that these are us rather than the other one. How can we stay in this? The most important thing is to accept the advice, and by seeing that we always need the advice, so we have to run for it, and we have to travel for it, and we need to remember the reality of actions in a believing sense, not imagining sense, and always try to ignore the speaker's defect. So please forgive me for any defect. I have a lot, but I'm the voice of speakers anyway. But you will find lots in your life, and really it's helpful, because once we remove this, we can get much more from them. Now, then we need to keep on getting the insight from previous experiences to keep our mind activated to these things, and by activating our RAS system, so it will protect us from it will delete all the unnecessary thing, and we won't be affected by them. And this will lead us to appreciate how much no time we have, and it will hopefully clarify our intent. Now, to reach these fruits, the main fruit is to widen our chest to get more knowledge, or widen our put to get more knowledge. And the best thing to do that is through Quran and pondering around what's the Quran, and Ramadan will be full of that inshallah. And then it's trying to be away from these 5 things: socialization, living in the future rather than in here and nowadays, trying to depend on something other than Allah, overeating, oversleeping. If we do that, and then remember death not as just frightening, but as your time limit that we don't know when it's coming. And believe me, if you keep on remembering this in a way of I may go now, so in each step you do, if you want to go, for example, to one of these parties, just remember, what if I die there? What am I going to tell subhanahu wa ta'ala? So it really helps to direct what are we going to do. And inshallah we will reach the remembrance and the benefit of it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.